Good afternoon, this is David Wendell with BushcraftOnFire, and we're pleased to be with you for the second part of our clay pottery videos, Almost Naked into the Bush. Now, I've got a couple different clays here. I'm keeping my good clay inside of this bag, and I want to show you the difference. This is clay that's not so good. It had a lot of dirt in it. This is clay that's very good, and I hope that you can see the difference in these. This is very, very smooth. This is kind of more rough. But I want to show you how to find good clay and not such good clay. What you do is just break off a piece of this, and I'm going to go ahead and roll this into kind of a snake. I guess when we were kids we played with snakes, right? And we'll get that rolled out, and then I want to show you a test. Got a little wet there. Show you a test that you can use to see if this clay is going to work or not for your pottery. Once you get your snake rolled out, you can bend this clay, and you can see this has no elasticity in it. If I bend this, no matter how carefully, it's going to crack. This clay is no good, so make sure that you test your clay before you use it. If you get clay like this that's going to crack, you may as well just throw it away. It's really not any good for anything. So let's do the same test with this other clay that we have that's a little bit better and see how that works. Try and get that junk clay off my hand. I don't want that mixing into my good clay. And what I'll do here is I'll break off a piece of this clay, and you can see this is much more pliable. You can see it already. And again, just exactly the same clay we made. I mean, this is used out of the ground, and got all the impurities out of it. I'm going to work this just for a minute just to get some of that moisture back out of it. You want your clay to be a little damp as you're working it. You don't want it mushy where it's going to fall apart, but you certainly want it a little damp so that you can work it well, so that it has a good consistency. Any clay, if it's too dry, will crack. But as you could see before, I got that clay real moist. Now this stuff isn't wanting to dry out in my hand because it's not in the sun, it's not in the heat. So what I'm going to do is just hold the camera off for a second until I get this rolled out into a snake, and then I'll be back with you. Alright, now you can see I've got this. It took me about a minute to get it a little drier. But I'm going to roll this out, and look at the difference now when I bend this. This clay rolls, it's got good consistency, it's got good elasticity, and it's not going to break. So this is good clay. So what I'm going to do is take a lump of this clay. Now this is probably about the size that I want for a pot, but I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller, and that's for the ease of working with this on the camera. Now what I want to do is I want to get my clay worked, and so I'm going to work it, make sure there's no lumps in it. If there's any lumps, I'm going to pick those lumps out, and I'm just going to work it for a few minutes, and I want my clay of an even consistency the whole way. So if I see a dry spot in there, I'll throw a little bit of water in. Remember, this did dry in a bucket and on a table, so it's a little bit moist. I mean, it's probably got a little bit of dry spots here and there, and those dry spots will be seen by that cracking there. So throw that in there, get it a little bit moister, and as you work with your clay, it's going to get moist in your hand. I mean, it's going to get drier. Your hands are going to suck up some of that moisture. So what I'm doing here is I'm just working my clay, get a little bit more moisture in there, and keep working it out. So let me work this for about 5 or 10 minutes, and once that I've worked it real good, we'll come back with you and show you how to make the pot. Alright, now what I've done, I've worked this and I've fashioned it into a bowl. But you know what? This bowl's no good. Now I'm going to show you why. If I was to make this bowl, I was to let it dry, and then I was to go ahead and fire this, it would surely crack, because I don't have anything in here called temper. So what I need to do is get some temper, and I need to show you how to make a temper. But I wanted to show you before I put the temper in. You can see the clay's good. It's making a nice bowl. Got some, worked all the air pockets out of it, and we can just keep working this. But without that temper in the pottery, in the clay, it's not going to work properly. So what I want to do is get some temper. There's a couple things that you can do to make temper. You can use ground up shells, you can use sand, you can actually even use old pottery that's been fired and broken. And we'll be firing our pottery in just a few days. Now while I'm saying that, please don't get upset at us. It takes a little bit of time to do these videos because of the nature of the material we're working with and because we messed up. We accidentally left our clay out in the rain. We had a severe rainstorm a day after the last video, and so this clay was almost dry. It got totally soaked again, and then we ended up having a bunch of grass and things end up in there that we had to clean out. So that's why it took a couple extra days to do this video. We had some guests in the middle, but we will get to it. So what we're going to do is go get some temper, and we're going to put that temper into this clay and show you how to do that. What we're going to use for our temper is sand. This is sandstone, and so I'm just mashing this sand up. You want it to be pretty small. What the temper is used for is that I will mix this into the clay, and when I fire this, this will help distribute and disperse the heat properly into the clay, so it doesn't get a hot spot and just blow up in the fire, hopefully. You know, when you're firing pots, there's a 50-50 chance that thing's going to break. So we're going to hope for the best. If it breaks, well, you'll still get the idea, and maybe we'll try and do another one. But as I said, we'll be doing that firing probably next week after this pot's had a good long time to dry. So I'm going to get a handful of this sand. I want it as nice and smooth as I can get it. And there we go. So this is some nice sand. Now a little bit of this temper goes a long way. You don't need a whole lot. They say you can use up to 1/3. I generally use 1/5 to 1/4. It seems to work out well. So let me get this sand back over into our clay pot, and we'll go ahead and mix it in, make sure everything is good, and then form our pot. Alright, you can see my temper, you can see my clay. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that temper into the clay, add a little bit of water because that is going to tend to dry it out, and then I'm going to work it through. Now this has to be worked for quite a while. That temper has to be evenly dispersed throughout that clay. So I'm going to work this a little bit, and then once we've worked it, now you can't work your clay too much, folks. I mean, you want to get this clay. One of the things that we're doing as we work this is making sure there's no air pockets in the clay, because if you have an air pocket, for sure that's going to explode. But the other thing we want to do is to have our clay an even consistency, even moisture the whole way through, as I said earlier. So we're going to continue to work this, and once we're done working it, we'll be back with you, and we'll show you how to form that pot.